n equals n plus 1, where n is the ideal number of bikes to own. I'm sure some of you may have seen that jokey equation before. So what it means is if you own one bike, the ideal number is 2. If you own 2, the ideal number is 3. If you own 20, the ideal number is 21. And I guess that might be true for most people, but there does come a point where you've got too many. And I think I'm at that point now. I own 12 bikes, and quite frankly, it's too many. And so the reason for making this video is because the other day I was chatting to a mate of mine who also owns quite a few bikes, and we were talking about maybe selling a few off and changing them. Which ones would you sell? Which ones would you keep? Maybe buy a new bike or a different bike. And he asked me a question as we're chatting away. He said, look, what would you do if you could snap your fingers and all your bikes were gone? All sold off instantly. So now you've got a big pile of money and an empty garage. What bikes and how many bikes would you buy to replace what you have now? And that was not an easy question to answer for me. I have no idea what the ideal number would be or what I'd buy. So after our little chat, when I got home, I was thinking about this particular question, and I think I've come up with an answer. So my downfall at the moment is that I do build a lot of one-off custom bikes. I mean, right now I've got 3 in here. I've got my Norley in front of the camera, got my ongoing GPZ project here, and next to it is my 650 1170 sort of long-running project. And I've got even more in my storage unit elsewhere. I also own a brand new bike as well. I've got a modern bike, but it doesn't look very modern. I went for a Naught Commander 961 because effectively it's like a one-off bike. It's like a very unique low volume bike, and fingers crossed it's going to be reliable, but who knows. But those bikes maybe are not the ideal few bikes that I'd like to own if I had to start again. So having thought about it, I think I need to own, or I would own, 3 bikes, or 3 types of bikes. The first one is a modern, powerful sports tourer. Now, sports tourers are kind of dying away now. They're sort of being replaced by adventure bikes, and I understand why, because adventure bikes are more comfortable, you can carry more gear on them, and yeah, fair enough. But for me, adventure bikes have always been a bit of a compromise. Most of these bikes are never used off-road, and yet you're compromising your on-road abilities for that off-road ability. So things like the GS 1300, I doubt many owners are going to be taking them off-road, and yet on the motorway, on fast roads, they're not quite as good as a modern sports tourer would be. So I'd go for a modern sports tourer, so I could cross the country in comfort down the motorways, no wind blast. Maybe you can carry some luggage as well, and you got plenty of power for overtaking and whatever. So looking at those sort of bikes, I'd maybe get a Kawasaki Z 1000 SX, maybe a Moto Guzzi Mandello V100, is it? V100S? I sat on one of them recently. Yeah, it felt quite good. Or something in that mould, as it were. And so the second bike I'd buy would be the type of bike I have most of. Either a one-off custom or an immaculate classic bike. Maybe something like an old Vincent, an immaculate restored Naught Commando from the 70s, an immaculate 73 Z1, something like that. Something you can tinker with and play around with over the winter. And come the summer, you can take it out to events, shows, that sort of thing, on a nice sunny weekend. And they're fun to ride at sensible speeds, unlike most modern sports bikes, of course. So, what else? Well, the third bike I'd like to own is one that I don't own currently. And it's something I've been thinking about for a future project, or perhaps another bike, once I've got rid of a few more of mine. And that bike is what I would call an urban bike. A bike that's good in traffic, in queues, around our busy roads. And so a big GT touring bike wouldn't be ideal. They're a bit big, a bit bulky. You don't need all that power just for going to the chippy and back, or across town or whatever. And my sort of one-off custom bikes, again, they're not ideal. Many of my bikes have clip-ons and rear sets. Not ideal in queues and traffic in a busy urban environment. And the other thing my current bikes don't have is a lot of suspension. Because one thing I've noticed, having ridden a lot more this year than I had since before COVID, is that the roads are terrible. Got potholes everywhere, potholes you don't expect to find, My friend Les has recently had a buckle front wheel, having hit a big pothole on a busy A road. And even on the most, major A roads around here, there are potholes and grooves, and the conditions are awful. So that made me think the ideal kind of urban bike these days would be something with longer suspension that can take the beating of our crap roads these days. And that led me down the road of perhaps buying some kind of scrambler type bike. I don't want an off-road bike because I'm not going to go off-road, but maybe a scrambler, a sort of road-based bike, but with longer suspension and a comfortable riding position, lots of lock. Sort of do anything everyday bike, really. Not too heavy, and it doesn't need much power. 50 brake horsepower is quite enough for a sort of urban bike. And so when it comes to scramblers, the obvious answer is to go out and buy a Triumph 900 scrambler, which I can see why they're very popular. I won't be buying one though, because it's too similar to my current Naught Commando 961. They're both twins, mine's air cooled, that's water cooled, but overall they're actually quite similar, except my Norton's a bit better, I think. So the Triumph is crossed off the list. So what else is out there? Well, I don't know. I did see a nice review of a Fantic 500, is it a Caballero? And that looked quite interesting, but I think maybe that's a bit too off-roady for me. I want a pure road bike. So what could you do? Well, I could build one. And that's certainly an idea for the future. I could build a bike based on a road bike, but with longer suspension, lose the weight, and so on and so on. And that could make quite a nice project. But then again, that's not a question I've got to answer anytime soon, because for the time being, I want to finish off my current projects, of which I've got too many, get them on the road, and then decide which ones to keep and which ones can go. And when I've sold a few, then hopefully I'll have more space, a bit more money, and I can buy whatever I want to do next. Maybe that'll be a project bike as a sort of modern scrambler, or maybe I'll just go out and buy a new or nearly new bike with all mod cons, ABS and so on, and I'll be happy with that. But we'll see. But it's an interesting question. If you were starting again, what bikes would you buy? How many would you have? As I say, I think 3 is about right. Because when I've got 12 now, even though some are not on the road or finished, you do have all the hassles of insurance, MOTs, road tax. There's always something these bikes need: new tyres, a battery, a service, oil changes. It just seems never ending when you've got a lot of bikes. So certainly I think I've got too many. But then again, first world problems, so I can't really complain too much. So anyway, there's a quick video about the sort of ideal collection. How many bikes are ideal? Is it really n equals n+1, or is that really a bit too simplistic? So anyway, put your ideas in the comments below, and in particular, can you suggest any sort of modernish scrambler bikes that could handle all the terrible potholes and roads in the UK at the moment, that's fun to ride, not too heavy, not too expensive? And yeah, I'd be quite interested to see what you guys can come up with. So anyway, that's it for now. And so thanks for watching, and cheers.